My best friend betrayed me by getting pregnant from my husband, and then my own mother tried to convince me to give them full custody of my children. My husband Dev and I started dating when I was 21, and he was 23. We had been together for almost 2 years before he proposed. We've now been married for 12 years and have 2 children. In the second year of our relationship, Dev introduced me to his mother, Mallory. I liked her right away and tried hard to make a good impression, but unfortunately, she didn't feel the same. The thing is, Mallory had been a widow for a long time. Her husband died of a heart attack many years ago, and she raised Dev on her own. They were extremely close. You could say he was a bit of a mama's boy, and he was afraid to introduce me to her because he always desperately sought her approval in everything. The main reason Mallory didn't like me was that I came from a well-off middle-class family. My parents owned several businesses, and I grew up in a fairly comfortable environment. They paid for my college education and bought me my first car so I could get to work. But at the same time, they taught me independence and how to build my own life. I always worked hard to support myself, and after college never asked my parents for financial help. Unlike me, my husband had a more difficult life. His father served in the military and was rarely home. After his death, Dev and Mallory became inseparable. Mallory was an alcoholic, so from an early age, Dev had to take care of her. He got a job at McDonald's as a teenager to earn extra money. Later, he dropped out of college because he disliked his major in communications. He told his mom how unhappy he was during that time. Without a degree, he struggled to find a job, so he started working as a freelance writer and, to his surprise, made decent money. He loved to travel and was a digital nomad for several years before meeting me and settling down. All that time, his mother asked him for money, and he willingly sent it, even though it seriously hurt his finances. When our relationship became more serious, I finally told him about my family and our wealth. He didn't believe me at first, but was shocked after Googling my family. Dev was angry that I'd hidden it for so long and accused me of not trusting him. I tried to explain that in the past, many people wanted to be with me because of my family, so I learned not to disclose my financial status right away. He eventually understood and was okay with it, but sometimes he made jabs like, "You've never had to try hard," or "You'll never know what real hard work is." That hurt because even though I had parental support, I had worked hard to build my career. I worked in influencer and brand promotion and fully supported my lifestyle without help from my parents. Dev never understood that, and that should have been the first red flag. When we decided to move in together, Dev immediately insisted we live at my place since I had more space. I agreed, then brought up splitting the rent. But Dev didn't like that. He said he earned too little as a freelance writer, and since I came from a wealthy family, I should prove my love by supporting him, meaning I should pay not only his share of rent, but all the bills. I said that was unfair, but was willing to cover rent if he took care of his personal expenses. That made him furious. He raised his voice and went on a tirade about how selfish I was and how my refusal to pay his bills showed how cruel I was. We argued a lot, and eventually, I gave in. I had to cut back on a lot to pay for everything, but I was deeply in love. Meanwhile, Dev continued sending money to his mom and buying her expensive gifts. Every time I pointed out that he had money for her but not to help pay our bills, he got angry and said his mom needed the money more than we did because she was a lonely elderly woman. I felt guilty and stopped bringing it up. When Dev proposed, I was overjoyed. Looking back now, I realize he put in minimal effort. I hoped he'd at least do something special, but he thought proposing in our backyard was a great idea. To his credit, he did ask my parents for their blessing like a gentleman. My mom, who adored Dev, suggested he get help from my best friend Kylie to plan the proposal. He agreed, and together they came up with the idea to propose in our backyard in front of all our family and friends. Kylie was my best friend since school. Our mothers had been friends since childhood, so naturally, we became close. We supported each other through everything. She was like a sister, my soulmate. We did everything together. Her mom adored me just as much as mine loved Kylie like a daughter. When I started dating Dev, I introduced him to Kylie, and they became friends too. She helped him not only plan the proposal, but also pick out the ring. Honestly, the surprise proposal caught me off guard, but seeing my whole family gathered to celebrate made me feel better, even if I was a bit disappointed he just proposed. In the backyard. The first to hug and congratulate me were my mom, Kylie, and Kylie's mom. Mallory, Dev's mother, was also happy for us and told me she had high expectations of me as a daughter-in-law, hoping I'd do everything possible to make her son happy. It was a happy day for all of us. Dev and I got married, and even after the wedding, I continued to pay all household expenses while he didn't spend a dime on me. I paid for our weekly dates and annual vacations because Dev insisted he was saving for our future. When I got pregnant with our first child, James, I had to quit my job because the pregnancy was difficult. Dev wasn't happy about that and started arguing with me, saying I had to work or we wouldn't have enough money for the baby. I cried a lot and eventually opened up to my parents about our situation. My mother sided with Dev, saying he was right and that hundreds of women work during pregnancy. But my father got angry. He called Dev and told him exactly what he thought of him. He firmly said it was time for Dev to act like a man and take care of his family. He warned Dev that if he kept treating me this way, he wouldn't let his daughter suffer and would rather see us divorced. Dev clearly got nervous after hearing that from my dad. I didn't want a divorce, but before the wedding, we'd signed a prenup at my father's insistence, and Dev knew that if we split, he'd lose access to the luxury life. He'd lose the house and the expensive car, both in my name. So for the first time, he stopped sending money to his mom and started paying bills. I still paid the rent since I had enough savings, but Mallory was furious. She was used to living off her son, and when the money stopped, she blamed me. When I gave birth to James, I was overjoyed. Everyone came to the hospital to congratulate us. Kylie stayed with me for several days until I recovered enough to go home. Dev was too busy with work and refused to take care of me or the baby. At home, I was very anxious as a new mother. My parents and Kylie's mom helped however they could. Mallory did absolutely nothing. Whenever she came to visit her grandson, she only made rude comments about me, saying I needed to lose weight or that I should quiet the baby immediately if he cried. Her remarks were always aimed at me, never her son, who did nothing to help. After James was born, I was overwhelmed with exhaustion and loneliness. I didn't know it yet, but I had postpartum depression, which many mothers go through but few talk about. Despite my efforts to tell Dev that I needed help with the baby, he stayed distant and refused to be involved. He said childcare was solely my responsibility as a mother, and he didn't want to help because he didn't know how. As I tried to juggle taking care of a newborn, running the household, and battling postpartum depression, Dev's refusal to participate only made things worse. He wouldn't even change a diaper or feed the baby. Each day, the weight of responsibility grew heavier and the depression deepened. I felt like I was drowning in unmet needs and constant demands. Eventually, I opened up to my parents about how I was feeling. My father was understanding, but my mother refused to believe anything was wrong with me. She said postpartum depression wasn't real, and that I needed to be strong for my child and overcome it on my own. When I complained that Dev wouldn't help me, she scolded me, saying he was the father but I had to be the better mother. It hurt to realize that even my own mother couldn't see how hard it was for me. I felt like I was drowning because of her disbelief, Dev's indifference, and Mallory's constant cruel remarks. The depression wouldn't let go. My only support was Kylie. I told her everything about my marriage, and she always listened, sympathized, and encouraged me. She often said Dev was a terrible husband and father and was angry at him for his behavior. It helped to know that besides my dad, I also had Kylie, especially during such a hard time. An hour later, I was hit with a new shock. I was pregnant again. It was an accident because I definitely didn't want a second child so soon. But I decided to trust God's plan and keep the baby. Def, to put it mildly, was furious. He said, "We couldn't afford a second child." We had a huge fight, and I realized it was time to go back to work. I contacted my former boss, who was happy to take me back as a freelancer until a permanent position became available. The second pregnancy was also difficult, but now I had more responsibility as a parent, so I was determined to manage everything. This time, when I started earning money, I decided I would no longer transfer my entire salary into our joint account. I had to think about my future and my children's, so I started saving 50% of my income and sent the other half to our household budget. As I resumed working, Def became lazier with each passing day. He suddenly started complaining that he hated his job and wanted to quit. I tried to talk him out of it, reminding him he didn't have a degree, so he should hold on to that well-paying job. This made him angry because he hated being reminded that he dropped out of college. Def said that since I took a break, he had the right to one, too. I argued that my break involved carrying a baby and going through a difficult pregnancy. Despite our arguments, Def still quit, saying we had enough savings and now that I was earning, he could take a break. He spent the whole day playing video games while I cared for the child, did housework, and worked. I left James with my parents when I went to work since my mom didn't mind watching him. When I came home and picked up my son, Def was still on the couch, glued to his games. This went on for quite a while, and eventually I got tired of shouldering all the parental responsibilities. In a fit of rage, I demanded that he start looking for a new job. Def didn't like that and began spending hours at his friend Clinton's place, playing video games together. Clinton was divorced, his wife had cheated on him and left, and because of that, he hated all women. That's why I never liked seeing him and didn't approve of how much time Def spent with him, but Def kept going over there more and more, and our arguments only intensified. I felt like a single mom because Def literally didn't help with anything, but I held on for the sake of the kids. When I gave birth to our second child, Nick, Def was so busy that he ignored all my calls and messages when I went into labor. In the end, he just missed it entirely. I never suspected him of anything bad, though in hindsight, the red flags were obvious. Kylie didn't answer either when I called her, so my parents had to take me to the hospital. She came the next day to visit me and the baby and apologized for not being there, saying she was stuck at work. I didn't think much of it at the time. After Nick was born, I finally gave an ultimatum. If Def didn't go back to work, I'd pack my things and leave. This led to a massive fight, but I no longer cared. As a mother, I knew I needed someone responsible by my side because doing it all alone was impossible. I told him I wasn't going to hold a grudge. He was free to do what he wanted, but I needed a partner who would be involved in family life. To my surprise, Def said he'd start looking for a job the next day. I expected resistance or another fight, but he unexpectedly agreed. Or at least, I thought so at the time. The next day, while my husband was in the shower, I was collecting his dirty laundry for washing when I heard a notification on his phone. I turned and saw a message on the locked screen from a familiar number. My breath caught and my eyes widened in shock. I picked up the phone and tapped the message. "When are you going to tell her? I'm pregnant and can't keep it a secret anymore." I froze, reading those words over and over again. When Def came out of the shower, he saw me standing still, with his phone in hand. He rushed toward me trying to grab the phone, but it was too late. I dropped the laundry basket, walked up to him, and slapped him across the face with all my strength. I didn't even think. It was like someone else had taken control of me. I was shaking with rage, and he stood there in shock, realizing I had read the message. His eyes widened, and he started stammering, trying to explain it was some kind of misunderstanding. I looked him straight in the eyes and said, "To me, you're dead." Then I packed my things, my kids' things, and drove to my parents. When they opened the door and saw me with the children and suitcases, they were stunned. At that moment, I broke down and burst into tears, telling them everything. I haven't stopped crying for 2 days because I still can't believe my life is ruined. I told my boss everything, and she graciously allowed me to take a few days off. Honestly, I'm speechless. That's why I'm writing about it online. My best friend of 20 years betrayed me by sleeping with my husband, the man I was married to for 12 years. And not only that, now she's pregnant. That means my marriage to Def is over. Def and Kylie won't stop calling and messaging me, begging me to at least hear them out. But I refuse. Def is begging me not to file for divorce, saying I should think about our children. Update 1. Hi, everyone. Thank you for your many messages and comments on my post. I know I haven't written in a month, but so much has happened in my life, and I've been trying to sort everything out. I'm back at work, because no matter what, I can't afford a long break. Honestly, work is my salvation right now, and a way to distract myself. Many of you were right. Def and Kylie had been sleeping together for a long time. Kylie wrote me a long message saying she didn't mean for it to happen, but fell in love with Def. And now that she's pregnant, she has to think about herself. That's supposedly why she tried to make Def confess to me. Def, on the other hand, realized he'd lose his luxurious lifestyle if we divorced. He admitted he made a mistake and claimed he just wanted to sleep with Kylie, but now that she's pregnant, there's no way out. He begged me to forgive him and even went so far as to suggest I convince Kylie to get rid of the baby so we could raise it together. His delusional ideas and inflated self-importance only fuel my anger. As for how it all started, it turns out Def had been whining to Kylie behind my back for a long time while playing video games all day. He told her how hard life with me was because I made him look for a job. He said Kylie understood him and knew how to listen. When he told Clinton, his best friend, Clinton didn't stop him. He encouraged it. He told Def that Kylie was a real woman, unlike me. That's how they first met, supposedly just to talk. But that two-faced snake decided to sleep with my husband. I have no idea what drove Kylie. She knew perfectly well what a terrible partner Def was. But now I no longer care. In her message, Kylie also said I should be grateful to her because she freed me from him. She said I wanted to leave him anyway but didn't have the courage. Maybe that was her plan all along. Who knows? Honestly, I'm glad she took out the trash. Now let her live her life regretting ever getting involved with someone like Def. I'm also pretty sure that the day I went into labor, they were together. And that's why neither of them answered my calls. But even that wasn't the worst part. When I first told my parents about Def and Kylie, my mom refused to believe me. My dad, on the other hand, was furious. He called Def and yelled at him for 15 minutes straight. Even though I was crying, my mom kept trying to smooth things over, saying maybe I was wrong, that Kylie couldn't possibly do that to me. So I called Kylie's mother and told her everything. Unlike my mom, she was enraged. She didn't doubt me for a second and immediately took my side because she knew I'd never make up such a story. She kept repeating how ashamed she was of her daughter and cried with me. She truly understood the betrayal I had experienced. After that conversation with my dad, I decided to file for divorce. We already have lawyers lined up, and thanks to the prenup and Def's infidelity, the process will be easy. The only complication might be the custody of the kids, but I'm confident Def won't want any real responsibility for them, so I'm almost certain I'll get full custody. But what shocks me most is my mother's reaction. She's strongly against my decision to divorce. When she realized I wasn't going to change my mind no matter how much she pleaded, she suddenly switched tactics and started saying I should give full custody of the kids to Def. At first, I thought she was joking, but she kept saying it again and again over the past few days. Today, I finally snapped and yelled at her, asking how she could even suggest such a thing. She said nothing, just walked out of the room. Her behavior is starting to seem really suspicious. Why would my own mother want me to give the children to a man who can't even take care of them? I think it's time to sit down and talk to her honestly, and do it in front of my father, to finally find out what's on her mind. Update 2. Only a few days have passed since my last update, but my DMs are overflowing with theories from people. I understand that for some this may just be an interesting story, but for me it's the reality of my life. My lawyer has already served Dev with divorce papers, and he called me crying like a child, begging for forgiveness. I just laughed and told him to get ready to lose everything. James and Nick are doing fine despite the chaos. Dev was never really involved with them, so they hardly even notice his absence. Of course, it's hard to care for a baby in this situation, but I'm very grateful for my father's support. Kylie's mother also came to see me. She lives in another city and didn't even want to speak to Kylie or listen to her excuses. She said she plans to cut all ties with her because it's a disgrace not only to our family but also to theirs. She admitted she's ashamed of her own daughter. She also knows what a useless father Dev would be and is sure Kylie will eventually come to her for money. And she's determined not to give her a cent. The news of my divorce and Kylie's betrayal spread among friends and relatives. Everyone's on my side. People aren't very forgiving, so Dev and Kylie started receiving dozens of hateful messages, and that's when I finally got a call from Mallory. She hadn't bothered to reach out for an entire month, not to support me, not to apologize. I'm sure she knew everything, but was too ashamed that her perfect son had ruined his life and gotten another woman pregnant. She called to say how much Dev was suffering now that the whole family knew about the affair and were furious. I stayed silent, while she shamelessly said that as a good wife, I should return to him and withdraw the divorce. She tried to excuse his actions, saying men sometimes lose their way and it's a woman's duty to bring them back. I couldn't listen to that any longer and told her to shut up. She was stunned that I raised my voice at her for the first time ever. I had always been polite and patient with her. I told her she should be ashamed for raising such a worthless man, a parasite, and that if she dared call me again, I'd make sure to squeeze every last penny out of him in the divorce. I reminded her that throughout our marriage, I was the one supporting her overgrown child. So now she had no right to ask me for anything. Not after he destroyed our marriage and knocked up my best friend. Mallory tried to squeeze out an apology, but I warned her that if she called me again, I'd sue her. It felt damn good to finally say it all to her face. Now she knows I'm no longer the quiet and patient daughter-in-law I used to be. Dev will get what he deserves, and no one can save him now. Yesterday, I finally sat down with my parents to get to the bottom of my mother's suspicious behavior. I had already warned my dad that she was insisting I give up full custody, so he was ready to find out the truth. I asked her directly why she wanted me to give Dev custody of the kids, even though that would never happen. At first, she hesitated, but Dad pushed her until she finally confessed. To our shock, my mother revealed that after I told them about Dev's affair with Kylie, she decided to meet with Kylie herself because she didn't believe me. They met, and Kylie started begging her for forgiveness. My mother couldn't believe Kylie had really done that to me. But then, Kylie confessed. She was pregnant and needed Dev to help raise the baby. Instead of yelling at her, my mother felt sorry for her. She promised financial support and tried to persuade her not to break up my marriage with Dev, explaining that Dev could still support Kylie and the baby while staying married to me. But Kylie didn't want that arrangement. So my mom changed tactics and told her that since she had destroyed my marriage, she should now take responsibility for the kids. Kylie was shocked, but my mother convinced her by saying I was suffering from postpartum depression and wasn't capable of being a good mother. She said the best thing Kylie could do was raise all the kids together since they'd be half-siblings. Anyway, she told Kylie that I would never let Dev be part of our kids' lives, so they needed a healthy parent like Dev because I was mentally unstable. Worse still, my mom convinced Kylie that if I gave up custody, I'd have to pay massive child support, which Kylie could then use for her own child. That's what convinced Kylie. That's why my mother started pressuring me to hand over custody of James and Nick to Dev. When my dad and I dragged this truth out of her, we were in shock. I couldn't believe I was being betrayed again. This time by my own mother. She decided that because I had postpartum depression, I wasn't fit to raise my kids and preferred that Kylie raise them instead of me. It shook me that she didn't even understand why I had postpartum depression, because Dev refused to help me. I begged him to be an equal parent and he just ignored me. I was doing everything alone while he did everything he could to avoid responsibility. I broke down in tears because I couldn't understand how she could betray me like that, after what my husband and my best friend had already done. My dad was silent for a while, and then simply told my mother to leave the house. She started crying and arguing, but he told her their marriage was over and that he didn't want to see her again. I don't remember much after that, but eventually she moved in with her sister. I don't know what to do anymore. I feel like I can't trust anyone, like I don't matter to anyone. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update. First of all, I finalized the divorce last month. My father was my rock this whole time. We got through the whole process, and as expected, Dev got nothing, thanks to the prenup. When it came to custody, he first tried to get full custody. When that failed, he demanded joint custody. But my lawyer presented evidence that throughout the marriage, Dev was a completely useless father, had no stable job, had an alcoholic mother, and cheated on me and got another woman pregnant. That destroyed his chances. The court granted me full custody, and now Dev is obligated to pay me child support every month. Nothing gave me more satisfaction than seeing his face fall in defeat. I looked back and saw Malari glaring at me with hatred, and I just smirked. Just like I promised, I got everything I wanted. Second, about my mother. She begged me and my father to forgive her. My dad flat out refused to let it slide and insisted she begin therapy to confront her deeply rooted misogyny and understand how disgustingly she treated me in my most vulnerable moment. I know my parents love each other, and it breaks my heart to see them split. But I understand my father's desire to work through this with a professional. In her defense, she has been going to therapy regularly, though she's still living with her sister. I don't know if it'll help her, but I hope she changes. As for Kylie, she no longer exists to me. I still talk to her mother, and as she promised, she cut all ties with her daughter. She even said she removed Kylie from her will and added me instead. I find it amusing to watch Karma slowly but surely catch up to Kylie. I've also heard that Dev doesn't want to marry Kylie or have anything to do with her child, just as I expected. Malari is furious because his actions cost her 2 grandkids, James and Nick. But Dev isn't planning to change anything. As for me, I feel so much better after the divorce. I'm now fully focused on my children and not clinging to the past. I won't say the journey was easy, but I don't regret anything. I'm glad I loved Dev and married him because otherwise I wouldn't have my 2 beautiful children. I'm also glad he cheated, because that was the push I needed to leave. Otherwise, I might have stayed in an unhappy marriage. I believe everything happens for a reason. I trust in God's plan. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Check out our previous one, subscribe, and good luck.